Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the feed. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty.
Good morning, Bellows Falls and Keene, and welcome to the feed.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, David.
And to all of you people out there, a good morning.
Yes. Well, I don't want to be a good morning. Marty's not here today. She's off in the Caribbean.
Sad face.
Oh.
Okay.
All right, good. So we're going to keep local events to a very short thing. Kung Fu Panda's playing at the Opera House.
How exciting.
Yes, for the second week. And coming up in April, we have Fiddler on the Roof coming to the Opera House. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
And so today we're here with David, and we're going to be talking about Fiddler and the production of Fiddler and everything Fiddler.
And we're excited to share.
Good. So, first of all, how did you decide on Fiddler on the Roof? I mean, it is a classic.
Yeah, this one sort of just seemed like the right time.
Mm-hmm.
We've done sort of more. We haven't really pulled an old chestnut out
Yes,
in a
that's
while.
true.
So there was, Chicago and Superstar and Urinetown last year was a little edgier and newer and so on like that. It seemed time, and there's an interesting journey that evolved around the selection of the show, because we really selected it because it seemed like a fun, nice family. Lots of people could come. Everybody could. We also felt Urinetown and some of the shows had been kind of adult, and this one seemed like you could bring the whole family. So then we started auditioning it, and in the audition, we've always had a good number of people from the LGBTQ community in our shows. This one, we had more than usual and a bunch of newer people also. And one of them was a trans man who was just amazing. And I wanted him in the role of Tevye. So initially, I cast him in the role of Tevye. And what I didn't know, and he hadn't really looked through the schedule, and I didn't know that he and his partner were having a baby. In January. So eventually he had to withdraw from the show. But in the meantime, I had cast a bunch of sort of alternative castings, and I had cast him in the role of Tevye. And I was thinking to myself, Fiddler is a show about cultural mores and how they are changed through loving relationships in the text.
Right.
Each daughter marries into a different situation and pushes the family's traditions in different ways.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, what an apropos confluence of these things. The LGBTQ plus community and the trans community right now, maybe in specific, is really pushing us culturally to change and grow. And I thought, what an interesting thing to start thinking about. So that really started to foment within me, and I started working on that. And then he withdrew because of his baby.
Times, yeah.
And then Hamas attacked the state of Israel. And those two events really changed our whole approach to the show. Or at least what we were thinking about and feeling as we were doing the show. We obviously didn't select the show as a response to the situation in Gaza.
Right.
But the situation in Gaza seemed to have impact for a lot of people on our doing the show. People would come to me and say, "Are you worried about the show? Do you think people will boycott the show? Do you think people will?" And I was never really worried about the show. I didn't sense in the community the kind of intense response
Right.
to even to Gaza that would really
jeopardize
the production. But I had people on staff asking, is it okay to talk about Jewish suffering at all in a time when Israel is creating so much suffering, for example?
Right.
And how do we talk about it? And what are our responsibilities as people producing this play to even reflect on it or include it in what is a production from 1905 Russia, long before there was a state of Israel at all?
Right.
So anyway, that gives you a little bit of
context
for
also good background, because you're making. I was at the rehearsal over the weekend and watching you make the decisions that you're making about how should this be portrayed. Here we are at a wedding and these things are happening, and here we are and they're going to dance, and it's going to be how is that going to be received? And it was very well done.
It's a very interesting. So that one moment in the show is one of the pinnacle. This revolutionary upstart Perchik who ends up going to fight for the revolution and ends up imprisoned in Siberia. He steps over the line, thing called the
literally
mechitza in the synagogue to dance with the other gender. And there is no, I have been to ultra-Orthodox synagogues. They are partitioned. They don't pray together. They don't dance together. They don't do a lot together. So that would be a huge, at the time in that place, first of all, my take initially was 10 people would not dance.
Yeah.
This whole large dance, it would not happen. If somebody stepped over the line, they would be yelled at.
Right. They'd be shamed.
He sort of is, but very quickly, the script makes me join him. And the music, as the choreographer was sort of insisting, the music almost necessitates it. They decided it would be a dance number. So instead of it being a not dance number where Perchik decides to dance and nobody dances and he gets hauled off to the stocks, they decided they were going to make it a dance number. So it is a dance number. What do the other guests do?
Right.
And that's where you came in, and I think for me, as somebody who's Jewish, who grew up in at least a conservative home, who has relatives that are Orthodox, who I had to fit it into my construct of what could possibly actually happen, which
is really interesting. Again, another moment I saw over the weekend was at the famous song "L'Chaim." To life. They're celebrating a contracted marriage, and which is, again, this is something that doesn't happen, but it was like a foundation of that lifestyle, or the culture. It's a better way of putting it. The foundation of the culture was that the father always determined who the daughter was going to marry, and it was
suitors would come and they would ask, and
But in the middle of this celebration, the Russians step in, and they sort of, and the people, the guys who are celebrating, have been drinking vodka. They're sort of
lubricated.
Very lubricated. They're loud. They're lubricated. They're dancing, and the Russians step in. And there's this moment where you don't know whether, is this going to be a bar fight, or is this going to be something else? And you transform it into something else. And it was really another one of those pivotal moments, because I don't know that people understand that relationship of a Jewish community in Russia at that time. That it was, it was, even though
fraught with danger.
Yes, and so it was, and as it later plays out too. But at that moment, it's really an interesting,
positive.
Exactly.
I think, I love the show, and I think it was a surprise for a lot of people. It came out in I think
71.
I think it was 64.
Oh, the show did. Yeah, the movie
came out in 71. So it came out in 64. And I can't think of too many real, Jewish shows. There's all these jokes about you can't succeed on Broadway if you don't have any Jews. But
But they weren't about.
But they
the
weren't
culture.
about, right.
Yeah,
They were backing. But they weren't, it wasn't about. But the writers, the original writers, made very clear their aspiration was to take the most quintessentially human, non-religion specific elements of these stories, which are things about parents and children and expectations and what you can do and what you can't do and how that changes. And those are stories we all get.
Right.
And it was one of the reasons that I thought the whole LGBTQ thing was because this is
It's the
happening
same
all
thing.
around us. What are we allowed to do, and how will we fight for it? By insisting that this is how we will live our lives, we children, while you parents have to adjust
Right.
to that. And that's a story we get, and I think it's a beautifully told human story. I think the writing of the dialogue and the lyrics and the way they work with this very specific and lovely music is I mean, you do get to dip into this musical tradition that people don't hear all the time, klezmer and a lot of Eastern European and Jewish songs.
Yeah, and rhythms and the way they're the
They're
dances.
it's
yeah,
different.
It's definitely
It's different, and that's if you really embed in a culture the way the show does. You also get that kind of rich specificity. If you went into the Arab quarter and you would find
Sure, similar things.
any in Indian work or whatever.
Right,
It's
right,
all
right.
full of stuff.
We have a clip, and that's a good segue to the clip. But we have a clip that we're going to show right now of parts of the rehearsal. A couple of minutes here. I need to drink
A
of water.
clip of our own, yeah.
So, Alex, can
Now
we go
I'm
clip?
nervous. I have not seen this clip or approved this clip.
Oh, that's true. You haven't.
May you be like Ruth and like Esther. May you be deserving of praise. Strengthen them, O Lord,
And keep them
from the stranger's way.
I don't know.
A nice clip. A very energetic performance.
Yeah, can I have that?
Yes.
I'm excited about that.
Yes. It sort of demonstrates just what you were saying before, is that the different rhythms, dances, and everything that are specific to this are really a lot of fun.
There are a lot, and again, it brings a whole new style. There's no kick line. There's no there are. It has its own little world that it lives in, and which brings me a little bit. Why don't I just say, our attempt to conjure this little village to make a sort of special world for Fiddler. We are using the original designer, I believe it was Boris Aronson, for Broadway. The whole show, actually, the name Fiddler on the Roof came from a Chagall painting.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Marc Chagall had painted a piece called The Fiddler, which had this fiddler standing on a house. It was a little tiny house and a giant fiddler, and they saw the sort of tenuousness and fragility of that little arrangement, the authors, and they thought, oh, this might have a metaphoric echo of what the show's about. But they also, the whole production concept came out of Marc Chagall's work. So we have a village that floats around upside down, and houses that, and giant candlesticks that permeate the environment and things like that. A lot of use of symbol, and it still, I think, gives, I mean, you saw some scenes, gives the show a place to sit in. I'm still trying to bring the whole thing together a little bit as a kind of collage where the interior and the exterior are both present at the same time, but so you can move fluidly one to the other. But anyway, that's
difficult to do.
a lot of color in the design.
That's true.
Very painterly, as one might expect. So that's been fun too, to immerse ourselves a little bit in Chagall. And
It has to be personally challenging to you, isn't it? Because you are dancing, you are singing, you are acting for you're broadcasting, and you're giving the sort of the whole spirit of the show is around that character.
oh, so I thought you were going to say it must be difficult for you with the multiple hats of
Yeah.
artistic director and lead and blah blah.
No, I was
But
just
really
thinking
you're
about
saying
right in the
just
in
that
the,
role.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big role, and I haven't done a role. I was thinking today, I haven't done a role in a musical on stage in 30 years.
And this is one to pick. Yeah. Why not pick?
Well, it's funny. The one I did 30 years ago was this one.
Really?
Yeah. I guess I don't know if I like it, or I think it fits me, or I'm called to it, or whatever, which is interesting because I rebelled against my Judaism pretty hard, and I'm certainly not devout or traditional, but I have learned to love and appreciate tradition, and my traditions, and the traditions that were given to me by my parents, and the knowledge that I hold when I'm working on this show because of them, which I would not have if they hadn't forced some of it down my throat.
Sure.
And that's and I'm thankful, and I feel, even working with the cast, there aren't very many Jews in
That's
Vermont
true.
and in Bellows Falls. There are other Jews in the cast, but not a lot of them. And I think I'm the one most who's had the most background. My mom, both my parents immigrated from Germany right around World War II. My father lived in Israel for a time.
Oh, really?
Anyway, so
Yeah.
it was a lot of these dances and things like that are things we did.
Well, that makes it even more special.
Lighting Sabbath candles, things like that.
Great.
So I do. I feel I'm scared of the weight of it, of the show, and of my responsibilities. I think if you're not, you're a fool.
But I would say that has to be true with every show. But I imagine with this show especially, that's true because you seem to, and as I observe, you seem to be the keel of the show. You're keeping it online. You're keeping it going in the direction it needs to go, and that's a pretty difficult thing when you're dealing with creative people and in an independent group of creative people. It's got to be something.
I think the hardest thing for me on this show has been not directing. And I mean that in so many different ways. I've directed all these shows, and then I'm not directing this one, and I have a difficult time just letting other people make decisions about something that feels so impactful
Right.
to me. And I don't even know exactly what the role is. As artistic director, I'm responsible for the oversight of the artistic execution of Wild Goose's work. The director that I have selected is responsible for this
For
production.
this specific production.
And for me to step in too often is probably not ideal.
That's probably true.
So
So it's another lesson too.
Yeah, there are
the
a lot
lesson
of-
of letting go
Yeah.
is also difficult.
Yep, and sharing and learning what other people do better than I do and can see more clearly
Yeah,
than I
yeah.
can. And I really have to focus now. I just
Right.
have to be doing what I'm doing and not. There's a whole other head that looks around and judges and just decides that it's not the one that needs to be talking to the people around me.
Talk a little bit about the choreography though, because this is so dance centric. At least it seemed the rehearsals I've seen. It seems dance.
You know, it's funny. When we selected it, somebody said to me, "Isn't that just a huge dance show, and all with men? And do you have those men?" No, we don't have a lot of men that dance really well. My feeling is that yes, it is a show full of dance. What I require for this dance is spirit.
Oh, yeah.
Because what is it really? It's a bunch of villagers dancing in their backyard and at their wedding and with each other. And that's what you should see. I don't need to see highly polished, perfect, Baryshnikov-esque dance moves. I need to see people dancing with their full
with
heart.
wild abandon.
Yeah, and I think we can get there. I think a little loose sloppiness for this would be fine.
Sure.
But there's a lot of dance and there's a lot of choreography, and you need to learn your steps whether you can execute them perfectly or not.
That's true.
And we certainly shoot for excellent execution.
How long do you think how long will the play run when it's
You mean how long is the play? Meaning when you
like
come
from the
to
time
watch
you sit
it?
down to the time you leave?
Around 2 hours and 45
Oh,
minutes.
okay.
It is not a short play.
No. Well, the movie was 3.5 hours long.
Yeah, it's not that long. It's shorter than the movie actually sort of embellishes, the procession to the wedding.
Right,
Everybody walking out and walking down the. And I have not seen the movie. I watched that one scene recently because I wanted to see something about historic.
Right.
Because that movie was impeccably researched as a bit of historical, accurate period costume,
Oh, yes,
period
yeah,
style,
yeah.
stuff like that. And I wanted to look at some of that. But boy, they took their sweet time meandering up the street.
That's true.
and
That's true. They built all the characters that way, so that
You could see a lot
yeah.
of things and a lot of people, but 3.5 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Recent-
I went back and watched it this weekend just because after going to the rehearsal it was like I have to see this again.
I don't watch the movie because at this point I think I could watch it because my choices are starting to be deeply embedded.
Yeah, you don't want to be.
But I don't want other people's choices in my head the
Right.
whole time while
Yeah.
I'm trying to work.
That's a good thing.
Well, we'll find out if it's a good thing. I'm not a hyper confident actor.
Ah,
I am I think I understand the process of acting, but I think you have to. There's a real courage in letting go in front of 300-400
yeah.
people.
Tell me about it.
That is daunting. And what if you forget? What if you? I've never been super tolerant of my own mistakes, and you don't make it through a show without mistakes.
Yeah.
It's too many things. But I'll have to get better.
I have to check with Alex on time. He's giving me the finger.
Yep,
Finger. Not the finger, but a finger.
A finger, the
Yes.
index finger. How dare you?
And I think that means we're supposed to wrap it up.
Well, this has been a pleasure.
Yes,
It
thank
has
you,
been
David, for
the
coming on.
easiest ramble of 25 minutes that I have ever encountered.
Well, I hope you can come back and ramble some more sometime.
No doubt. And I hope I can sport this little shaggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, who my wife has actually said she sort of likes the beard.
Really?
Which, that is an unanticipated outcome.
I can imagine. All right. Well, that's it for this week. We'll see you next week. Hopefully, Marty will be back and we'll have another show.
Kick off another
Thank you.
awesome feed.
All right. Thanks, David.
Thank you, sir.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music.